what is happening at the border, I want to bring in Hurd, a former Republican congressman from Texas who for 6 years represented a district that spanned a third of the U.S.-Mexico border. He is also a former undercover CIA officer. So good morning, Congressman, and thank you for joining us. We now have this news that the Pentagon has confirmed they are going to send 1,500 U.S. troops to the border to help with the situation that Rosa was just laying out there. Do you think that's a good move in your view?
No, it's a sign of how bad this situation has become. This administration is ignorant, they're incompetent, and they're foolish when it comes to dealing with this border crisis. It's actually a humanitarian crisis from their own making. And the reality is, the thing that they need to do is actually stop treating everybody that's coming into our country as an asylum seeker. That is why we've had over 6.3 million people come into this country illegally since President Biden came into office. Last year, that was 2.5 million people. And these policies are aiding and abetting human smugglers and human traffickers. This policy is not humane, and it's having an impact on all of our cities. It's not just having an impact on the border anymore. It's having an impact in Chicago and New York. And if President Biden actually listened to his Border Patrol officers, he would figure out what they need to do in order to solve this problem. It's gotten so bad, it's unbelievable. And ultimately, I think Secretary Mayorkas needs to be fired, and somebody else needs to be brought in order to try to address this problem.
Yeah, I know that's a position you've maintained, that Secretary Mayorkas, who runs DHS at this time, should not be in that position any longer. But it was 2018 when Trump also decided to send U.S. forces to the border to the tune of about 5,000 of them when it was the caravan that was approaching the southern border right around the 2018 midterm election. So this has been done before. The question is,
sure,
what's the alternative if you don't think this is what works?
Well, look, I had a problem with it when the last administration did it too, and guess what? The last administration is the ones that started treating everybody as an asylum seeker. The reality is we need to deport more people. It is illegal to come into our country in between our ports of entry without the proper documentation. And to be an asylum seeker, you have to be a part of a protected class, which is usually something to deal with your race, your religion, your sexual orientation. Your government has to be persecuting you because you're part of that protected class. Wanting to come to the United States of America just to get a better job is not a reason for asylum. And as the gentleman said in the earlier segment, when people are in our custody, we should treat them humanely and treat them properly. But we should be sending them back to their home countries. Oh, and by the way, if we deal with this issue on the border, then we can start working on streamlining legal immigration to get more people into the country appropriately. Even with the economy being as bad as it is, there's so many industries that need workers, and let's do it and get people here legally. So there's a number of solutions. Y'all know, look, I was one of the architects of the last really bipartisan immigration, border security, bipartisan piece of legislation. And we can do this problem. We should be supportive of immigration, and our country is better for it, but it needs to be done the right way. And unfortunately, our last two presidents have taken terrible decisions that have ultimately allowed us to have open borders, which is something that we won't be able to sustain long term.
Given that this has been at the forefront of what almost all Republicans have run on for the last, however many years, why is it still such a fight? We're watching this play out on Capitol Hill right now. Republicans cannot agree on what an immigration package should look like. Why can't your party, given how much they've prioritized this in the way they speak publicly, why can't they find a solution for this?
Sure, and I appreciate the question, but Democrats are just as bad on this as well too. They could have streamlined legal immigration. There's a bill, the USA Act, that it was when Republicans were in charge, we tried to jam Republican leadership to pass this, and when Speaker Pelosi came into power, she could have picked that up. But I agree with you. This is one of the reasons people are frustrated with Washington D.C. and politicians, is because everybody talks a lot of noise, but they don't follow it up with action. And so there's a number number of pieces of legislation. I would start with the USA Act that was done in a bipartisan way. That's something that ultimately could be moved. When it comes to these hearings about understanding how DHS is working, making sure DHS understands the problem. The fact that Mayorkas came at one of his hearings said the border was secure. The fact, that's not true. The fact that President Biden's communications director, or excuse me, press secretary, said that immigration was down 90%. Either she was lying or somebody was lying to her. How do we not have the right information about what's going on? And again, Secretary Mayorkas didn't know how many kids had been lost in the system. So the fact that they don't even understand the basic numbers is a sign they can't get things done. But I agree with you. Republicans should be pushing legislation forward on how to deal with this problem. But ultimately, Border Patrol has the tools to deport more people. It's the administration making a policy decision not to do that. And so that starts in the White House, that starts in the executive chambers of Department of Homeland Security, and they need to be enforcing the laws that are on the books. We had been dealing with border security for a long time before people started using Title 42. And this is a problem. These communities are being impacted, and and by the way, have a foreign policy that works in these countries where the majority of the illegal immigration is coming from to address those problems there.
Congressman, I want to jump in here because you are talking about that. You've been very critical of the Biden administration. You are also said to be considering a 2024 run for the Republican nomination. Have you made a decision on that?
I haven't made a decision, but look, I've been fortunate to serve my country in a number of ways, whether it was overseas in the CIA or in Congress, and I'm not closing the door on being able to serve again in the future.
Okay, not closing the door. If you don't run, if Trump is the Republican nominee, given he is leading the polls at this time, do you think he would lose in a head-to-head contest with President Biden?
Yes, President Biden is campaigning on finishing the job, right? And if he were to finish the job, that means inflation is going to continue to be out of control. Crime is going to rise. His strategy, President Biden's strategy, is based on Donald Trump being the nominee. We know the facts. We lost the House in 2018. We lost the White House and the Senate in 2020. The red wave didn't materialize in 2022. President Trump has too much baggage that is going to be used against him in November, and that's going to cause Republicans to continue to lose. I'm sick and tired of losing, and I want to make sure that we have real conservative thought that is driving this country. Oh, and by the way, guess what? There's an opportunity. When 7 out of 10 Americans don't want Joe Biden to run for re-election, that's an opportunity for us, but we have to nominate the right candidates that can appeal to independents, that can appeal to some Democrats, and if we do that, then we're going to be able to see a real red wave and be able to see us win not just the popular vote, but we can win in some of these contested Senate races. We can win some governorships, but that requires more people to vote in primaries and make sure we get somebody that can beat and take advantage of this opportunity to beat a weak and ineffective current president.
Yeah, I should note those polls also show that Republicans would rather see someone other than Trump as the nominee, despite the fact that he is still leading that race. If you do decide to get in, please let us know. Former Congressman Will Hurd, thank you.